Good evening, all you cool cats and kids. Ha ha ha. If you've been home like I have the last week, I know that you have gotten into Netflix's Tiger King. It's been great. If you haven't, I suggest that you do so. Thought I'd start you off with a little levity for April Fool's Day. Um, Good evening, sociology students. I hope you all are staying safe and well as we get through this tough time. One of the things that we're going to talk about this evening with Chapter 5 is socialization. Now that we've established where sociology comes from, how to investigate it, a couple of things about culture, if you will. Now we're going to talk about something that we do in society, which is socialize. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to do a lot of that lately. So let's live vicariously through Chapter 5. Go ahead and get the switch. There it is. Says here that socialization is the lifelong social experience by which, I'm trying to bring that down so you can see, people develop their human potential and learn culture. Social experience is the foundation of personality, which is a person's fairly consistent patterns of acting, thinking, and feeling. It says here that without socialization, personality hardly develops. If you take a look at your chapter, there is a young lady that was discovered in a hut, I believe it was. And because she had been devoid of any social experience, she had no personality. She was almost feral, in fact, which is why you spend most of your kindergarten, preschool time socializing, learning through play, because you are developing your personality. That's very, very important. There are 6 theorists who have helped us understand human development as it relates to personality, and we're going to talk about 5 of them. I'm sorry, my slides tend to have a little lag tonight. Okay, Sigmund Freud. Now, if Karl Marx is the rock star of sociology, this man would be the rock star of psychology. In fact, if you've taken any psychology classes, you know this already. Sigmund Freud is the father of psychology. He developed the theory of psychoanalysis, which basically will combine the needs and influence, and it created a model of personality. Mr. Freud said the model of personality consisted of 3 things: the id, your hunger, comfort, sexual desire. These are the human being's basic drives. These are the things that drive us. Very simple, very primitive, archaic things. Then you have the ego, which is a person's conscious effort to balance innate pleasure. So your ego kind of helps you keep that stuff in check. Okay. And then you have the super ego, which is your cultural values and norms internalized by an individual. This is what we call our conscious. Our super ego is like our ego, but it throws in those norms that we talked about in chapter 4. How you're supposed to behave, things of that nature. So, for example, your id with your hunger, and your basic drives. Ooh, I want it, I want it, I want it. Your ego may be saying, okay, let's keep it in balance. You can't have that. And hopefully your super ego is saying, yeah, you can't have that because XYZ. So, for example, if you know that you're a diabetic, you may crave sweetness. And this is a very simplified explanation, but it works. You may crave sweetness, your id. I want the chocolate, I want the chocolate, give me the chocolate. Now, your super ego may be saying, hey, you can't have that chocolate. You know what that does to your blood sugar? It makes it go up. You have to go to the hospital. You need to take care of yourself. And your ego is in the middle saying, well, maybe you can have a little piece. Or, no, you might not want to do that. It balances everything together. Okay? Now, Freud said that the id and the superego remain in conflict, but in a well adjusted person, the ego balances them out. So if you're well adjusted, your ego does really well with allowing you to have some of the things that you want, but also making sure that you make the best decisions for you as it relates to things that might not be so good for you. But now Freud claimed that if those are not kept in check, that personality disorders may develop later. So imagine you have an individual who has sexual desires as their id and it is extremely strong. If they don't have an ego to help balance it out and that super ego to throw in those norms, you may have a situation with that person to develop a disorder like being a nymphomaniac or maybe even delving into sexual assault, rape, that sort of things. All of those things that are centered around their id, which is their sexual desire. Now, Jean Piaget studied human cognition, and it is how people think and understand. He developed 4 stages of development: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Now, if we were in a regular class, I would break this down to you very simple. It's kind of a difficult, complex, and complex thing to understand, so I will go through it as quickly as possible. Your sensory motor are levels of human development where individuals experience the world through their senses: taste, touch, smell, hearing. So imagine if you're on a busy street corner, you may hear the traffic as the cars go by. You may see a red light. You may touch the pavement or touch a wall or something of that nature. Pre-operational is the level of human development where individuals use language and other symbols. So let's go back to you being on that busy street. Pre-operational allows you to see symbols like traffic lights, stop lights, maybe the walk, no walk sign. You're able to see that. Concrete operational is the level of human development at which individuals first see casual connections in their surroundings. Now, this is when you're able to see and understand that not only does that red light represent a symbol, but it means to stop, and a green light means to go. Okay? And your formal operational is the level of human development where individuals think abstractly and critically. Hopefully you have all 3 of the above, but with the formal operational, you're actually able to understand why we have a need for traffic lights, why we need those, how it helps keep people safe, how it helps keep motor vehicles going, how it works. Okay? Now, Mr. Carl Gilligan compared the moral development of boys and girls. He said that the 2 sexes use different standards of rightness. Boys have the justice perspective. Basically, they rely on the formal to define right and wrong. What that means is for most men, I'm sure ladies, you can attest to this, there's no gray area. It is either black or white. There's no in between. It's either right or it's wrong. On the other hand, girls have the care and responsibility perspective, where we judge a situation with an eye towards relationships and loyalties. So, for example, in the instance of stealing, boys may say because they carry the justice perspective, stealing is wrong because it breaks the law. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Girls, on the other hand, according to Mr. Gilligan, would want to ask some questions. Well, why are they stealing? Are they hungry? You know, ladies, we tend to look for those little gray areas because we feel like there's an explanation for everything, according to Mr. Gilligan. Let's go to the next one. I'm sorry, y'all, for the lag this evening. Then we have George Mead, who is another really big sociology theorist. He developed the theory of social behaviorism. It explains how the social experience develops an individual's personality. Mead focused on self. He saw self as a product of social experience. He said that self is not there, it actually develops. And the only way it can develop is you've got to be socially aware. And finally, for chapter 5, we have here Erik Erikson's 8 stages of development. And I'm sorry, my screen doesn't seem to be as big as it should. Mr. Erikson theorized that personality takes shape through life development, and he went through these stages. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, you will not need to know all of these stages. No, ma'am, Miss Washington. Okay? He theorized that personality takes shape through life development. The first one is infancy, which is trust versus mistrust. When you're an infant, if you've ever been around an infant, they tend to, trust who they know. And if you ever try to hold an infant or a baby, they cry if they don't know you. Family members take a large part in this. So depending on what type of family members they have, that helps to develop either trust or mistrust. Then we have toddlerhood, which is the challenge of autonomy versus doubt and shame. Basically, if you've ever been around a toddler, they want to do everything themselves. And at this stage, they really focus and they struggle with wanting to be independent, but then feeling bad when they're not able to do it. Then we have preschool, which is the challenge of initiative versus guilt. Taking that initiative to meet that new friend. Or if I don't like that friend, the surroundings are very important in this age group. We have our pre-adolescence, which is the challenge of industriousness versus inferiority. It's very important for them to make friends at this age, otherwise they do feel inferior. Next, we have the adolescence, challenge of gaining identity versus confusion. This is the age I deal with at the middle school, and I can tell you all the kids there are trying to establish who they are, but they want to be unique. They don't want to be like everyone else, but they do want to be like everyone else. Middle school is a tough age for that. Then we have young adulthood, which is where most of you are, which is the challenge of intimacy versus isolation. Feeling like, do you want to fall in love or do you want to be out here still being single, free to mingle? That's a big choice during this age because society dictates that you should be trying to settle down, but you might not be ready for it just yet. Then there's middle adulthood, which is the challenge of making a difference versus self-absorption, and this is where I am. It's very important during this age that I start looking at, am I out here doing things I need to do? Am I giving back to the community? Am I volunteering? Or am I just stuck in my own little bubble? That is something that I do struggle with every day, just making sure I'm out here making a difference. And then we have old age, which is the challenge of integrity versus despair. And at this age, which we'll all get there one day, the struggles, according to Erikson, are, did you live a good life? Were you good to people? Versus, despair of dying alone and being alone towards the end of your life. Now, there are a couple of other things in this chapter. Please don't forsake them. Go through and look at them because they're very important. For example, we talked about anticipatory socialization, which is, wanting to be a part of something. And a lot of you in your discussion questions said that you never had anticipatory socialization. You never wanted to be a part of a group to achieve a desired position. So that's great, but also know that that doesn't just happen in high school. That was just the example that I gave. As you become adults, that also, may happen as well. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, take a look at some of the other things that we've got going on in this chapter. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. Thanks.